Josh Norman has had a very nice career for a former 5th-round pick, who coming out of high school did not even receive a single Division I offer. He was a huge part of those fierce Carolina Panthers defenses back in the mid-2010s and even earned a first-team All-Pro selection, a distinction that he cashed in on in a big way, taking a huge deal to sign with Washington the following offseason. But even for all the money that he's made and the success he's had on the field, Josh Norman's NFL career has not been all sunshine and rainbows, because the cornerback has been part of some of the most disrespectful moments in recent NFL history. Although a fair amount of Norman's embarrassments took place after he set sail from Carolina, there were actually two rather memorable instances of him getting completely owned that happened while he was a member of the Panthers. The first of which actually came at the hands of one of his own teammates at the time, Cam Newton. It was training camp. Interestingly, before what would go on to be Carolina's best season during the Cam Newton era, when they finished the regular season 15-1 en route to a trip to the Super Bowl. But way before the Panthers were essentially embarrassed on the national stage by Von Miller and the Denver Broncos, Josh Norman was out there getting brutalized in practice by the team's star quarterback. As the story goes, the duo started jawing back and forth during the very first practice of training camp. You know, just run-of-the-mill trash talk between teammates. Well, at least it started that way. Until the crafty cornerback actually intercepted Newton during team drills and then proceeded to stiff-arm Newton using some rather questionable technique as he neared the end zone. Something I imagine that Superman was not accustomed to experience during practice. In fact, the technique was so questionable that it wrenched Newton's neck and knocked his helmet straight off his head. Newton then proceeded to grab Norman by the helmet and started to berate him, and the two started grappling before ending up in a heap on the ground exchanging blows. While we may never truly know who won the exchange, if you ask anyone who was on social media in 2015, most folks will assume it was Newton, just based off the still shot alone. Cam is towering over a rather vulnerable-looking Josh Norman, somehow still flashing that $1 million Cam Newton smile while the rest of the team storms towards the pair, trying to make sure that neither of the team's two-star players end up getting hurt by some friendly fire. And apparently, this was not a common thing for the two. Josh Norman had really pissed Newton off. Newton allegedly went as far as referring to Josh as a pissant and told the defensive back, "Hit me like that again and you'll know something."
Hit me like that again, I know something.
The fight clearly didn't affect the team too much, as they did end up having a very successful season. But perhaps it played into Josh Norman's decision to skip town for a big contract the following offseason. It can't exactly be fun to play for a team whose star player hates your guts. Especially when said star player is asked about the altercation between you two and says, "I have no regrets of things that I have done." A sorry, not sorry for the ages from Cam. But this is just sort of how it has gone for Josh Norman. I mean, everyone and their mother has to remember his tumultuous relationship with the former New York Giants star wide receiver, Odell Beckham Jr. This one all started during a Week 15 matchup between the Giants and Panthers. There was a pre-game scuffle involving a handful of players on the Carolina Panthers defensive unit, including a practice squad player, Marcus Ball, who was allegedly wielding a baseball bat, something that the Panthers secondary would use during warm-ups as a symbol for bringing the wood and making home run plays. This absolutely peeved Odell and was a catalyst for one of the most chaotic NFL games of all time. It was a physical game, particularly between Beckham and Norman. Beckham got called for 3 personal fouls and Norman received 2 himself. The tensions hit a climax when Odell launched himself at Norman away from the ball, and the two nearly ended up in a full-on brawl. For some reason, neither player ended up being kicked out, something that perhaps Josh Norman wishes would have happened, knowing how the rest of the game would unfold. Not only did Odell burn Norman for a crucial game-tying touchdown in a critical moment of the game, but he then proceeded to do his best Allen Iverson Ty Lue impersonation and very blatantly step over the fallen quarterback following the catch. Not exactly one for subtlety, Josh Norman had some choice words for OBJ following the incident. The league, I suppose, was on Norman's side in this one, because while the cornerback did receive a fine following the game, he was not hammered with the same 1-game suspension that Beckham got, which, after looking back on the incident, may have even been a little light. The guy basically tried to decapitate Norman, to the point that it's almost hard to appreciate how badly he embarrassed him at a pivotal moment of the game. Almost. Unfortunately for Norman, the embarrassments did not stay behind in Carolina when he left, and the cornerback continued to end up in some pretty precarious situations at each of his next 2 stops in the NFL. On the bright side, none of his ensuing incidents were as messy as the altercation with OBJ. Yet even so, they were embarrassing in their own rights. Like the run-in he had with Joe Mixon during a preseason game while he was a member of the Washington football team. Yeah, a preseason game, because Josh Norman's propensity to embarrass himself truly knows no bounds. Washington was matched up with the Cincinnati Bengals for some good old-fashioned August football, when Cincy's then-rookie running back Joe Mixon wasted no time initiating himself into the NFL by following the age-old tradition of brutalizing Josh Norman. On an early first-quarter play, he took a handoff from Andy Dalton, bounced it outside, and locked eyes with Norman, who was closing in on him to try and make the tackle. Mixon, seemingly without a second thought, tossed Norman a stiff arm that slammed the quarterback into the turf so hard that it's a miracle he did not leave a crater on the field. Norman bounced off the ground like a rag doll, and Mixon turned the run upfield for a first down. Because that's just how it goes for Josh Norman. If you've been following the NFL at all for the past few years, this should not come as a surprise to you. I mean, what about the time that Norman spent pretty much the entire week before Washington's divisional matchup with the Dallas Cowboys talking trash about Dak Prescott, the Cowboys quarterback, only to end up essentially reinventing what it means to get posterized during a game against the Dallas Cowboys. It all started following Dallas's Week 1 contest with the New York Giants. Prescott had a career game, completing 25 and 32 passes for 405 yards and 4 touchdowns, a feat that Norman suggested anybody could do when he told reporters, "You stand back there in the pocket all day and go through your first, second, and third reads and come back to your first one." "Okay, cool," said Norman via the AP. "Anybody can do that. You can throw the ball if that's the case." Dak apparently took exception to Norman's comments and played some more dynamite football, lighting up the Redskins for 269 yards and 3 touchdowns, including a 51-yard touchdown pass to Devin Smith, who just so happened to beat Norman in coverage on the play. And if that weren't enough, Prescott also had a moment of 1v1 glory with the loudmouther cornerback when he broke a 3rd-and-1 scramble for a near 40-yard run that he capped off by stiff-arming Norman straight into the ground. After the game, there were 2 very different tones from the 2 players. Dak calmly told the media that while he heard Norman's comments, he was not going to let him be a motivator for him, as he had more than enough motivation already. Norman, on the other hand, quickly backtracked, ranting about how he didn't think his initial comments about Prescott were at all inflammatory. "Prescott is a great football player. Dak has always been a great football player," Norman said, "and they did a great job out here today, and they showed that. But what I will not do is allow the media, or whomever the case may be, is stir my words and change them to what they want it to be. It never has been the case, never have been the case." Okay, Josh, whatever you say. I guess it is better than engaging in a sort of blood feud with Dak like he did with Odell Beckham Jr., but man, it is a tough look to backpedal in such a dramatic fashion after getting toasted on the field. And just in case you thought that now that Josh Norman is on his 3rd NFL team and perhaps heading into the twilight of his career that he would stop getting embarrassed on the big screen, well, Derrick Henry was quick to remind us that this could not be farther from the truth. In fact, anyone who saw what Derrick Henry did to Josh Norman during their Week 5 matchup can rest easy knowing that for as long as Norman is in the NFL, somehow, someway, he'll continue to put himself in harm's way and end up embarrassing himself. This one was another level of disrespect, too. Derrick Henry saw Norman coming and basically tossed him into next week.
He almost got him to jump. Yes, he did. He gives it to Henry. Henry trying to get to the outside. Shoves the defender, Josh Norman.
The stiff arm was so epic that the internet pretty much lost its collective mind in real time and held a roast of Josh Norman, despite the fact that the play was ultimately called back because of a penalty away from the ball. That's when you know it's bad. At the end of the day, Josh Norman has made a great career for himself in the NFL. He went from a forgotten high school prospect to an All-Pro, and there is no taking that away from him. And you know what? We shouldn't try to take it away either. Instead, let's be grateful that he made it, because otherwise, we would have never had the epic highlight tape that other players have developed at his expense over the years.
Did you get a chance to see the Derrick Henry stiff arm last night? What were your thoughts? that.
That's a grown man, he talks like that.
But what about you? What's your most memorable Josh Norman moment? Join us in the comment section below. If you like this video and learned a thing or two, clicking the like button helps out a ton. And hey, we appreciate it. If this is your first time coming around to TPS though, subscribing is a great idea because we put out videos like this every single day. But as always, thank you for watching and we'll see you guys next time.